It's nice to see all of you today. Thank you so much for joining the panel, and I'm really excited about an interesting discussion. The topic of the panel this morning is Green Innovations, Adoption of Innovative Green Technologies for Sustainable Development, where we will discuss with an exciting panel of speakers, clean and green technologies and how businesses are implementing those in the region. And it's always important to also remember how innovation policy and also financial institutions can support that. At UNEP, we see a very important role to play for what we call eco-innovation, so integrating sustainability into the entire business strategy and model. And here, of course, the technologies and innovations that support that have a key role to play. So I'm excited to discuss today with the panel of speakers. So I'm gonna call them up and you can meet them here on camera. So first of all, we have with us Kamuran Uçar, who is the General Manager of Unilever in Central Asia, Caucasus and Iran. Welcome to the panel, Kamuran, and thanks so much for joining us today. Okay. Then we have Ekaterina Miroshnik, who is the Director and Head of Infrastructure at EBRD, Infrastructure Eurasia team. Hi, Ekaterina, and welcome to the panel. Then we have Avtandil, who is the Chairman at Georgia's Innovation and Technology Agency. Thanks so much for joining us today, Avtandil. And we also would like to welcome Radosław Kaskiewicz, who is the Managing Director at 3M for the East Europe region.
Good morning.
Hi, Radosław. Good morning.
Good morning.
And we also have with us Elena Bolsun, who's the Head of Foreign Trade Financing Department at Belinvestbank in Belarus. Hi, Elena. Thanks for joining us today.
Greetings for everybody.
So, as I said, the topic of today is green innovations, and we would like to start with a question actually to Avtandil. And if you could tell us a bit more about the trends that you're observing in Georgia, but also in the region in terms of innovation for sustainability, and to what extent are businesses and SMEs already driving in this space?
Hello, everyone. First of all, it's my pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me to this wonderful conference. I would like to say that government of Georgia has strong commitment to support innovation and technology development in the country. And it was strong milestone that Georgia starting building the innovation ecosystem since 2014. And we have a clear mandate within the government towards the sustainable industrial development to stimulate innovation, modern technologies and R&D, facilitate commercialization and usage of research and development, support to innovative startups and their competitive growth, facilitate cooperation between the representatives of scientists and businesses, which is one of the important part of our work. And GITA has been working since that in order to develop also infrastructure, to give access to finance to the startups with the international venture and angel investor investment funds, and also their participation in decision-making process when government gives money for the early stage startups. We are also working in order to attract the FDI with regard to the innovation and the technology businesses. And also definitely we are working very rapidly in order to increase the competitiveness of human capitals, especially in the technological field, and also to stimulate STEM education in overall the country for the also like in all the regions. I would like to say that as a result, Georgia is having up to 200 globally scalable startups with fintech, artificial intelligence, virtual reality, life science, edtech, agri-tech, femtech solutions, and other fields, who raised millions of dollars from private, local, but mainly from international investors, because local investor network still needs to be established in we need more local investors to fund Georgian startups, but still we are in early stage of development our innovation ecosystem, and we are seeing more and more private sector involved locally here in order to finance startups. And one of the important part of our work with regard to the regulatory framework, we just recently created the law for the IT companies, and all of the IT companies released from the taxes from VAT and also from the property taxes, and income tax is decreased to 5% for IT companies and 5% for corporate income tax. So this is one of the best environment for IT companies to relocate their business here in Georgia, and we have seen 2 US companies who already entered in Georgian market, employed Georgian citizens, etc. Very briefly about the whole ecosystem that we are supporting from Chechen side.
Thanks so much, Avtandil. Super interesting, and we'll get back to you with follow-up questions later. You were speaking about the role of support at different levels for businesses, and also what is done from the government level to let innovation flourish. I would like to turn to you, Ekaterina, and talk a bit about the city level, which is something that maybe sometimes is not so much talked about. We often talk about national, regional level, but we don't really go down to city level often, which is a very obvious link actually for innovation to happen, as of course the businesses are based at city level and it's their immediate surroundings. So could you tell us a bit more how green innovation can be supported at the city level, and also what the role of green infrastructure is in supporting sustainable development?
Yes, thank you, Bettina. I'm very pleased to be, at this panel today. So, Bakur, if you could please, share my slides. Thank you. So, the EBRD countries' operations include 38 economies across 3 continents, from Estonia to Egypt and from Morocco to Mongolia. They have all been grappling with the impacts of the pandemic. EBRD is helping these countries to meet their most urgent needs. We are also ensuring at the same time that the immediate response and the post-COVID economic recovery are characterized by a decisive tilt to green and sustainable outcomes. We are working more intensively than ever on fostering the green transition. We are raising investments in renewable energy, energy efficiency and decarbonization, and promoting our innovative Green Cities program. And I would like to say a few words about this Green Cities program. Next slide, please. Yes, as you can see on this slide, cities, they, do contribute a lot to energy consumption, so it's 75%, to greenhouse gas emissions, 70%. But on the other hand, they're the driving force behind the GDP growth. 80% of GDP comes from cities, and they also, we know that urbanization is growing and population will grow in cities as well. If possible, to move to next slide, please. Yes. So what is our Green Cities program about? It's a €2.5 billion framework that supports cities to prioritize and invest in green city measures. So the main pillar of the program is development of a Green City Action Plan, or GCAP as we call it. So when we prepare a GCAP, Green City Action Plan for a city, for a member city, we try to prioritize investments based on how green they are. So of course we cover all sectors, all municipal sectors, starting from urban transport to nature-based solutions. And we're helping to build capacity at city administrations. And of course, we support cities to access green finance. Next slide, please. Thank you. So far we have 45 cities who joined the program. 13 GCAPs have been completed and adopted, and of course more to follow. I would like to say that cities in Georgia have been one of the pioneers to join the program and participate. Both Tbilisi and Batumi are established EBRD green cities and have adopted green city action plans. Tbilisi actually was one of the first cities to complete the green city action plan. I'm delighted to share that Tbilisi is developing now its 6th follow-on GCAP project, and 70% of the GCAP recommended actions are under implementation in Tbilisi. This demonstrates that the Tbilisi city administration is committed to green and sustainable outcomes for its citizens. Even more impressive is the number of SDGs that the Tbilisi GCAP projects have contributed towards. They are SDG 11, Sustainable Cities, SDG 5, Gender Equality, and SDG 8, Decent Work and Economic Growth. What are the projects that we financed, here in Tbilisi? First, we helped with fleet bus renewal by providing 107 million euros to purchase 370 green buses for the city. EBRD is also supporting the Tbilisi Metro project with a sovereign loan of 75 million euros. Metro and bus projects, they, of course, promote sustainability. They encourage modal shift to public transport away from private cars, and they also contribute to reduction in greenhouse gas emissions and air pollution. So EBRD Cities is an exciting program, and I'd like to invite more cities to join it. Thank you.
So much, Ekaterina. Really interesting to hear what's happening at city level, and perhaps we can also in the second round exchange what's perhaps happening also in other countries at that level and how companies are already engaged in this. So now that we've heard a bit more from the high level on what's happening in terms of supporting innovation at country level, at city level, we're really happy to have two company representatives with us who can share a bit more what is happening at the private sector level in terms of innovations. And I'd like to start with you, Radosław, and ask you if you could tell us a bit more about the targets that you have set for 3M to drive sustainability. So sustainability in terms of green products and more environmentally friendly production processes, and how you drive that throughout your value chain, and also contextualize the SDGs for your company, linking back, of course, to the topic of this conference, which is about localizing the global goals.
Yeah, that's very much true. Good morning, everyone. It's great to be part of this fantastic conference. So, as we're talking about the climate changes and the environment, it becomes a top priority for all of us. And sustainability, of course, is becoming a key factor for the corporations. There are very strong expectations of the consumers, investors, regulators, and also what we see, the changes on the market are really pushing the companies to think about sustainability. And 3M as a global player is really very actively pursuing sustainability, and especially sustainable inspired innovations, and in all of the areas, in manufacturing, in products, and the new technologies. One of the examples could be that actually in my home country, during the COP24 in 2018 in Poland, 3M made a strategic announcement that starting from 2019, every new product that we're launching on the market will be in line with sustainable value commitment. So it means the product will demonstrate the positive impact on a neutral environment, or really help our customers to achieve the sustainable goals. Okay, so we are talking about this could include reusability, recyclability, energy, waste, water saving. So all of the things. So, and we're talking about the company that is having more than 60,000 products in their portfolio, and every year we're introducing at least 1,000. So every year, 1,000 sustainable value committed products. On the other hand side, when we're talking about really driving from the corporation perspective, environmental stewardship, this year in February, 3M announced I think one of the biggest and the clearest direction regarding really sustainability. We communicated that we're going to invest $1 billion in the next 20 years to accelerate the environmental goals. So like achieving neutrality in carbon by 2050, reducing the water in 25% in all our facilities, or even return the water, better quality of the water, than we are sourcing. So these are the global activities, but there are a lot of local activities that we are implementing both in our manufacturing sites, in our offices, and really training the teams, the people to be part of this. So this needs to be really the DNA of the company. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Radosław. Really interesting, and we'll get back to you to inquire on some more details, also on how you implement those commitments. But I think also what you said in terms of really integrating it into the DNA of the company really resonates with what we found is very important, because it's obviously always important that we take a life cycle approach and we really think about how one measure that we take impacts the entire product life cycle, but also the entire value chain. So it's interesting to hear about that. And then we're also really happy, Kamuran, to hear from you about another private sector perspective. And if you could perhaps start by telling us what Unilever's strategy and goals are to drive sustainability, and in particular on climate action, where I think you have a really strong focus.
Hi, Bettina. Yeah, thank you very much. Good morning, all. So frankly, the issues that the planet is facing at the moment is quite serious and probably existential. And not one simple problem that we are trying to solve. We are trying to solve many, many issues. The global warming, the water issue, loss of forest areas, loss of agricultural areas, society issues, inequalities, income distribution. So when the problem is this multi-level and very complex, the chances of having one solution is also is not really possible. So what we believe in Unilever is that you have to have a holistic perspective, and you need to tackle the issue from multiple angles rather than focusing on one area, because the chances of focusing on one magical solution is not out there. So in Unilever, in the past 10 years, in 3M, we have put actually the whole sustainability area in the core of how we do business. So this has started, the journey has started 10 years back. And it seems like, for the foreseeable future, the next 10 to 20 years, the big part of our business focus and strategy will be actually sustainability being at the core of what we do. And as I said, you need to look at the entire value chain and not just really solve the issue in one aspect. So all the brands, all the products, procurement, production, all countries, everything that we do, we need to put a big focus around that. Here, in the screen, the friends have actually put down, our commitments as Unilever. So for example, one of our biggest commitments is to get net zero emission from all of our products end to end, including the whole sourcing and the suppliers by 2039. Halving the greenhouse gas impact of our products in the total life cycle by 2030. Zero emissions in our operations by 2030. So first we need to, of course, zero our emissions in our operations. Then we need to include the whole supplier food base as well and go to the full end-to-end ecosystem. Replacing fossil fuels derived carbon with renewable or recycled carbon in our cleaning and laundry products, because this part of our portfolio is at the moment heavily dependent on carbon derived ingredients, and we need to find other solutions to that. And more importantly, I think it is important to start informing and educating our users and the consumers. So we want to go into transparency of label and share our carbon footprint for every product with our users as well. I mean, maybe talking about these things sounds very easy, but frankly, spreading around 190 countries, having a large portfolio of more than 400 brands, the impact is very large, and the jobs to be done, the program to solve the challenges is very large. Unless you put the right level of resource, focus, people, attention, bringing science and technology behind it, we believe the change won't come. Hence, within our resources, we put a big portion of our resources behind this agenda. But let me stop here, and then I'll talk about what our brands will do and how we drive consumer change in maybe the next round. Bettina.
Thanks so much, Kamuran. This is super interesting, and I definitely want to get back also to this topic of consumer and customers, which both you and Radosław have mentioned. And of course, if we talk about value chain, this is a very important part of the value chain, and each of us also have to drive changes. But let's get back to that in the second round. And going back now well, we all know that a lot needs to be done. A lot is already happening, as we've seen, but we do need this to also make business sense, of course, and there needs to be financing to invest into these newer technologies to make them flourish and to help companies to innovate, especially if we talk about smaller companies, SMEs, that might not always have the resources that they can invest in. Kamuran, you already said it takes a huge investment to actually also put behind these changes and commitments. So Elena, I would like to turn to you and ask you how financial institutions such as yours are supporting innovation, and what you have planned to accelerate this process from your side. And I believe you will speak in Russian, so just to remind participants that there's interpretation for this event that you can select in the Zoom interpretation button.
Спасибо большое. Я очень рада, что меня пригласили на потому что тема зеленой энергии и финансирования зеленых проектов очень важна как для нашей страны, для нашего банка и, естественно, для меня тоже. Я хочу кратко представить информацию. Представляю, является одним из ключевых крупных финансовых учреждений. Мы являемся участником международного рынка, работаем более чем с финансовыми институтами из 14 стран мира. И вот именно по теме зеленого финансирования очень что с 2015 года мы для себя приняли новую концепцию банка. И эта концепция, она пришла не случайно, стала результатом трансформации банка, которую мы делали на протяжении последних нескольких лет. Именно ответственное отношение к окружающей среде, содействие развитию. Это та миссия, которую мы приняли для себя всего. И в данном случае здесь речь идет не только о зеленом экологическом.
Elena, I'm sorry, I think I've been told that your sound doesn't come through very clear. Perhaps you could try turning your camera off. It's not nice, but just to see if it gets better.
What's about now?
For me, it sounds good now, I think.
Okay. Okay, may I continue?
Yeah, I think now it's good. Sorry about that. So you can continue.
Спасибо. Мы себя планируем как первый экологичный банк. И в данном случае мы для себя выстраиваем финансовую банковскую партнерство.
Sorry, Elena, we cannot hear, and the translator cannot translate. Could I ask you maybe to try and turn off your camera or to come back in, and we move to another question, and then you come back in when the sound is better?
Okay.
It's a pity if we can't hear you. I think there might also be an option to dial in via phone, and perhaps the organizers of the event, you can support Elena and trying to get a better sound. And well, we really want to hear from her, because it's super interesting to hear what the financial institutions have to say in that regard. But in the meantime, I'm wondering, Ekaterina, if we could go back to you and hear from you on the role that you think financial institutions have to drive innovation and that change, also thinking about what we've heard from the other panelists.
Да, безусловно, Беттина, как бы, наверное, хотела бы сказать, что мы предоставляем финансирование. Sorry, I'm just sort of after Elena switched to Russian, so I should speak in English. Sorry about that. So, of course, you know, we provide financing to support green investments. And of course, I showcase green cities. And of course, we have more. We support, you know, all sustainable infrastructure investments. And, you know, we've committed to that, you know, all our projects will be Paris aligned by 2023. And, you know, we provide financing in terms of debt and equity to our clients to support sustainable infrastructure. But what we also do is we try to attract concessional financing, you know, more. And, you know, there are lots of, you know, concessional finance available for sustainable infrastructure. And we are there to help clients to bring this concessional financing. So, you know, very often we, you know, attract capital grants and in some cases concessional loans, you know, to co-finance investments with us. And I would like also to share, you know, an example of a project, you know, in Georgia. It's a Batumi bus project. We provided, it's a small project, we provided 5.5 million euros for this project, which included purchase of 10 electric buses. And, you know, electric buses are more expensive than, for example, CNG buses. But in order to make it attractive for the client, for the Batumi, for the city of Batumi, we also attracted 1.5 million euro capital grant to support this investment.
Thanks so much. This is really interesting in terms of seed funding and taking the risk out of some of these innovations that in the beginning might need support to then really come to scale. And yes, a really important role that financial actors can play. I think we're still waiting for Elena to come back in. So I think in the meantime, I wonder, coming back to you, Avtandil, from what we've heard from the other panelists, I wonder if you could share with us a few examples of specific support that's happening in Georgia to foster innovation, be that in terms of financial support, but maybe also training, capacity development, other areas that you are really looking into. If you could inspire us by sharing a few examples.
Thank you very much for the questions and also for the wonderful presentations for other panelists. And I would like to say that, yes, the government is supporting innovation overall, but also we included the green part for each cases. What does it mean is that when we are financing startups, we have different kind of financing mechanism. One is up to $30,000 per startup. The another is up to $250,000 per startup. We are financing overall 50 startups per year by these programs. And in each cases, when they apply to us, we do have that social and environmental policy, like the regulatory framework, and we are checking all the application, how it will affect the environment. The creation of the new innovative ideas, how does it change or will not change the environment? This is very important for us in decision-making process. And if the applicants who are applying to us create something that will severely damage the environment, we are vetoing them and they could not go to the next round for the evaluation. So this is one of the important parts that we included in our granting mechanisms, that we will not issue grants that will somehow harm green economy. But also within the innovation startup ideas that we received, we financed, as I mentioned, more than 200 startups, and around 10 is specifically on green technology and green innovation. Apart from the access to finance program, which is also very important for countries like Georgia, because we have this small economy, we are not rich country, so usually the first round of the investment in developed country comes from the friends and family, and usually it does not happen here in Georgia, so that's why government interferes here and gives the money to the proper teams, but money is not all that we need. Of course, we have other training program, coaching, mentorship. One of the important things that we have in Georgia from 2020, February 2020, one of the top global accelerator from Silicon Valley, 500 startups entered in Georgia and opened fully functional regional office. And we are, they are here, and it's regional accelerator. Also, the countries from other, like startups from other countries, like from Azerbaijan, Armenia, Ukraine, Belarus, even from Baltic countries, they apply to us. And then when they accept it, they are registering as a Georgian company, of course, which is very easy because we are number 7 in the world with ease of doing business according to the World Bank. So in Georgia, it's very easy to do businesses, and we somehow are creating the innovation ecosystem where also other country startups can also be part of the process and use all the advantages being Georgian company with regard to the free trade agreement we have with the European Union and China simultaneously, and etc. So we are offering our space and an opportunity to other startups as well.
Thank you so much. Very interesting, all the concrete measures that you're putting into place to support specifically also SMEs and innovation. And interesting also that you do this first screening against their environmental and social performance, which then of course also pushes the market to move towards that. Thanks so much. I wanted to also ask a follow-up question to Kamuran about what I touched upon before a bit, the effect of consumer behavior, because of course Unilever, you sell a lot of consumer goods, and here there is a part on integrating sustainability into the materials, the design of the products, the production process. But then, of course, we as consumers also have a role to play in how we use the products. And often a lot of the footprint can be brought down during the use actions. So perhaps you could share a few examples with us of what you do to engage consumers and to drive consumer behavior towards more sustainability.
I mean, Bettina, as you rightly said, you know, at the end of the day, the end user has the power to make the final change. So, look, I share you one number. You know, every day in Unilever, we reach 2.5 billion consumers. Every day, 2.5 billion people are using our products. And when we measure our total footprint, whether it is the carbon emission, whether it is the water footprint, we realize that actually 2/3 of the impact is coming from the consumption of how the consumers are actually consuming our products. But we have to assume the full responsibility. We cannot just say, okay, leave it there. We fixed our factories, we fixed our value chain, we fixed our suppliers, and the consumer in use is not really our problem. No, it is actually a very big part of our problem because of this 2/3 number. So what we need to do is actually to hold hands with the consumer and make the change together. I think we are moving into age that the consumers are more ready to start hearing about this challenge and they are more aware and they are willing to really make that change happen. So this gives us the ability to actually make some radical changes in our designs, right? So whether it is the formulation, whether it is the packaging, whether it is some user changes, consumers are more open for these kind of adaptations to their habits. So give you some example, for example, we have recently launched a dispenser in UK, which you go, you know, with your bottle and refill your laundry detergent rather than buying a new bottle and throwing away when you finish it. You go and refill it. So that's one, for example. Same thing we have done in our deodorants. You know, we have launched the first refillable deodorant, which has never been thought of if you don't put your focus behind innovation that can drive sustainability. Or, in our home cleaning products, we have gone to the maximum concentration in our spray products, and then the consumers will fill it up with water and actually use the bottle over and over again, up to 20, even 30 times, actually until it is really dysfunctional and broken. And then at that point, we have a commitment to make all of our packaging from recycled material, not from zero virgin plastic. So there are many things actually that you can do. But as I mentioned before, this requires focus, this requires resource. So what we have done in Unilever is we have put 1 billion euro of funding behind our brands to make this positive change. But also one big part of the change that the brands can do is communication, because we made huge media investments every year, right? I mean, a multiple of 400 brands, 200 countries, the money that we spend behind the brands is really large. So we are also committed to spend 50% of our total media budget to make a positive change within the whole sustainability area. So that is also a big commitment, and you can only do it by really taking this seriously and by making a drastic change in the DNA of not the company, but also in the DNA of the brands that we do.
Thanks so much. This is really interesting, and I'll also love to follow how all of these new measures that you're putting into place, such as the refillables for the consumers, how these are then taken up by the consumers, and it's going to be really interesting to then measure the change, and also knowing as consumers we contribute to the change. So thanks so much for sharing lots of food for thought. So one thing that we are witnessing or thinking to witness, it's too early to say, but that during this global crisis of COVID, that perhaps people also refocused a bit and turned towards more sustainability, turned towards, for instance, looking more into the value of time and who we spend time with rather than purchasing new products, for instance. And of course, in terms of supply chains and companies, there has been a huge impact through COVID. We know that, and I was wondering, Radosław, if you could share a bit of how it has affected your decision making, and when it comes to greener business decisions. Has it affected, or has your strategy stayed the same no matter what? And yeah, if there have been any steps taken to work with your supply chain to adapt to the new challenges posed through COVID.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I believe that this difficult time of pandemic proved that really the environmental part, social governance, is really something which is critical for the companies, their stakeholders. And during this time, the increase of this awareness, I think, have been significant. And when we're specifically talking about the region that I do have responsibility for, in the region we have manufacturing sites, and actually one of the biggest manufacturing sites globally. The main site is located in city Wrocław in Poland. It's a super hub. And we started, I've been talking about the DNA. So we can have big corporate words, we can have the big corporate initiatives. And of course, it starts from the top. But then what's most important is that this is cascaded down, and it becomes, as we were discussing, the DNA of the company, the DNA of all of the employees. So really the critical part is, how are we engaging the people which are working in our manufacturing sites, in our offices and so on, that they are going to be part of this change and of these targets. And one of the examples that I could share in Wrocław, in Super Hub, we initiated this initiative, and actually this was during the pandemic time. We said, okay, this could be an opportunity for everyone working remotely and so on, so bring some additional value. And we started multiple projects, and some of them were quite basic, like reduction of electricity consumption. And we replaced all of the lights into the energy efficient LED lights. And this gave us more than 20% energy consumption reduction. On the other hand side, as of January 1st this year, all of the offices, all of the manufacturing sites, and also the places where we are located, electricity is that we are purchasing is coming from the renewable energy sources. So that's really, really critical. Another example from the small projects and the bigger projects, we are right now not having any waste during the production. So we are really zero landfill. We are having really the zero landfill status. So again, through the small projects, engaging the teams, and not only us, but as well our suppliers, will drive the agenda forward. And we were talking, one of my predecessors were talking about the electrical buses. So that's another initiative that we did. So the small buses that are commuting between the different locations are electrical buses. Also working with the local government representatives, we've put the bicycle stations so people, they can use the public bicycles and also commute between the locations, and as well, utilize this green transportation part. So I think, the pandemic increased the awareness and accelerated the awareness, and it helps to really understand what does it mean, and to really to drive, to accelerate this change, this positive change. Thank you.
Thanks so much for sharing. And yeah, I think this resonates. We as Unilever, we also did a small exercise last year when we went back to companies that worked with us on eco-innovation. And what we really heard is, in terms of further resilience during COVID, what helped were really these good relationships, both with the employees and also the supply chain that you get by integrating sustainability throughout your value chain and your business model, and you work jointly on that. So it gives a sense of also belonging together and staying well together. So great, Elena. I was just gonna say, I think I heard your voice before. Thanks for reconnecting, and it would be great to still hear from you on the role of financial institutions in supporting innovation.
Да, спасибо большое, и я надеюсь, что меня сейчас... Хорошо?
There's an echo. I think it might be on your side, perhaps if you use a headset or mute the computer while you're speaking, if you use two speakers.
Maybe just a moment. Okay, it's better? Nice. Тогда я бы хотела рассказать буквально пару слов про наш банк, как мы пришли к нашей концепции экологичного банка. Belinvestbank – это единственный банк в стране, и мы первые приняли для себя концепцию экологичного банка. И мы шли этой концепции поступательно, то есть путем внутренней трансформации, которую мы проводили достаточно много времени. И это не только определенный цвет нашего бренда, как я говорила, да, он экологичный, ассоциируется у всех с экологией. Наш бренд, он состоит как бы из двух частей – логичность и экология. И логичность в данном случае для нашего финансового института – это построение понятных дистанционных каналов обслуживания. Это возможность для наших клиентов комфортно и безопасно управлять своими финансами. Это и доверительное отношение с нашими клиентами и партнерами. Эко значение в понятии нашего экологичного банка – это, естественно, финансирование зеленых проектов, это продвижение зеленых продуктов и зеленых инициатив, и, естественно, формирование экосознания общества. И мы, являясь первым экологичным банком страны, конечно, большое внимание уделяем финансированию зеленых проектов. Мы являемся единственным банком, который входит в Координационный совет по предотвращению препятствий и по развитию ветроэнергетики в Республике Беларусь. Только за 2020 год нами были профинансированы достаточно крупные проекты по развитию различных альтернативных источников энергии. Мы финансировали фотовольтаическую станцию, это получение электроэнергии и солнечного излучения посредством таких элементов, которые складываются в модуле, и таким образом мы получаем альтернативные источники энергии. Помимо этого мы профинансировали ветропарк, ветроэнергетическая установка, в котором является самой крупной не только на просторах Республики Беларусь, но и на всем СНГ пространстве. И все это стало возможным благодаря тому, что мы запустили в банке кредит экологичный для наших клиентов, которые реализуют зеленые проекты. То есть этот кредит, он является более льготным для клиентов с более привлекательными процентными ставками. Поэтому, в общем-то, вот такими продуктами мы помогаем нашим клиентам формировать именно свой экологичный бизнес. Помимо кредитных продуктов, хочу еще остановиться на одном продукте, поскольку мы банк, для нас различные банковские продукты и предложения именно зеленых банковских продуктов очень интересно. Мы первые в стране в 2020 году запустили первую экологичную карту. И эта карта изготовлена из биоразлагаемого пластика. То есть такая карта, она дает своим держателям не только возможность рассчитываться, но и быть, скажем так, давать возможность пожертвовать. То есть от каждого платежа, совершаемого по данной карте, 0,5% отчисляется на специальный фонд нашего партнера, это фонд по защите окружающей среды. И, в общем-то, мы поступательно собираемся переводить все наши банковские карты на заготовки из биоразлагаемого пластика. Такие карты будет легко узнать, на них будет отметка «Био». В общем-то, вот как бы много можно и очень долго рассказывать, да, про зеленые продукты, которые наш банк предлагает для клиентов, и наше экосознание. И, в общем-то, выйдем, наверное, лучше я буду готова ответить на вопросы, которые возникнут нашему банку.
Thanks so much, Elena. And before we move to the questions from the audience, because we have a few, just one follow-up question to you. During COVID-19, since the crisis began, do you feel there is a higher interest in the kind of schemes and loans you're offering, or has there been challenges? What's your feeling? Is there still demand for basically the products, the environmental credentials that you're offering?
На самом деле мы видим большой интерес со стороны клиентов по использованию таких продуктов. То есть клиенты видят, что данные продукты в первую очередь меняют экосознание своего бизнеса. То есть мы видим, с одной стороны, проблему, когда бизнес на одной стороне, на одной чаше весов видит свою прибыль, а на другой чаше весов видит экологичную продукцию, которая стоит зачастую дороже. И для покупателя зачастую вообще не имеет значения, что будет с экологией при производстве той или иной продукции. И поэтому, в принципе, задача нашего банка в том числе, чтобы формировать экосознание общества для того, чтобы экологичный бизнес в стране развивался. И в данном случае очень важна поддержка со стороны государства. Государство Республики Беларусь на сегодняшний день платит повышенный тариф за электроэнергию, которая вырабатывается из альтернативных источников энергии. И мы видим положительную тенденцию в этом.
Thanks so much, Elena. And I'd like to come to some of the questions that have been coming in from the audience. So thanks so much, everybody, for being actively engaged. And just to say, any questions that we don't get to answer now, they'll also be going to be passed on, of course, to you as the panelists for answering afterwards. But the first question that I would like to ask was posed to Ekaterina, but I think also other panelists could pick it up if you want. So the question is, as the SDGs are all interdependent naturally, we need innovation that integrates different areas. And what kind of innovation projects do you implement that show integrated actions between different sectors? And the person wanted to know especially about the Green Cities project, but I think also in the other projects that we've heard from the other panelists, if you could maybe one or two say how you integrate actions between different sectors to make sure it meets various of the SDGs. But Ekaterina, do you want to start from your side?
Yes, Bettina, thank you. Yes, of course, that's actually a very good question. And of course, there's also interconnectivity, so to speak, between the sectors. Of course, to electrify transport, for example, you need more electricity. And it would be great if this electricity comes from green sources, so comes from renewables. Of course, the more renewables you have, the better chances you can have for, electric buses on your streets. And of course, we are trying to basically, use renewable elements in various projects, for example, to put solar panels, on some housing units or something like this. I would like to use an example of a project we are now preparing in Mongolia. So we're trying to move people who are living in areas, in yurts, basically to move them from yurts to, affordable housing units. But these housing units will be green. They will have EDGE certification. So basically, this is going to be affordable, energy efficient, and climate resilient housing for low income groups. At the moment, these people who live in ghetto areas, they don't have access to basic utilities. They have no connection to water, wastewater, or heating or solid waste collection. So, and of course, when they move to these units, they will have access to all these services. Also, there will be some, gender components involved. There will be some, areas for women, for children, in this new housing units. So, which will also help with there will be on-site childcare services. And of course, again, you will tick several SDGs here, by default. And of course, about 30% of this of the area that will be built for this housing units there will be green areas, recreational areas, walking and cycle lanes. So nowadays, when we are preparing a project, we consider all these angles. So green, climate resilient, innovative, also gender inclusion. And we also expect that, there will be 700 housing units built under this project, and about 35 units will be, for example, for disabled people on the ground floor of each residential building. So this is an example that I wanted to demonstrate. Thank you.
Thanks so much, and I guess it also shows very nicely how the goals on paper translate into really concrete action on the ground and change lives of people. So thanks a lot for sharing. I'm just looking at the other panelists to see if any of you would like to add something on that.
Maybe one thing I want to add, we talked about, it's a great group, here we have the financing group, we have the NGOs, we have the companies, we have the government. I think the point is that the problem is really large and it needs multiple angles. And an ecosystem is very, very critical, because just one company or one action would not be sufficient, frankly. So this whole end-to-end and interconnectivity is very, very crucial. So working with the government's regulations is one of the most crucial aspects. When it goes to the financing and investing, we want to see more of the green funds coming into the picture, or even, there is a conversation around companies' valuation based on their sustainability scores. So these are great initiatives. We talked about the consumer and the behavior change, and then the role that the companies can play in terms of reducing the footprint. So this ecosystem needs to work, and there has to be. There are a lot of platforms actually like this, not just talking, but really bringing the ideas alive. And I really value these kind of initiatives, which is why I'm here today, frankly, because what I wanted to leave here is the problem is existential, and it requires the full ecosystem taking actions. One perhaps something that I want to highlight in here, You know, we're talking about a lot of the technology advancement, you know, the digitalization, technology advancement. If you look at the digitalization and technology advancement, at this stage, it is a lot used for efficiency. But how we can really convert the technology and this whole digitalization into sustainability is a one big leap, which in my perspective is at the moment missing in the whole chain. And this is something crucial that needs to be done.
Thanks so much, Kamuran. This is almost already a nice summary of the panel discussion and sort of outlook. And indeed, it's so important that all pieces of the puzzle come together and work together. And that's why I'm so happy about the great panel we have today, because I think we have all the voices reflected. So perhaps another question, which is quite specific. So I'll see, Avtandil, if you want to get back to this now or want to answer later on via email. But one person asked how many projects you have funded in the field of eco-innovation, and if you could give a few examples of these projects.
Thank you, first of all, for this question, and I will briefly just answer this question. As I mentioned in my speech, we financed around 10 projects, and some of them I could not list all of them right now, but we could give them the proper information. But some of them was that they created the technology in order to clean the tanker oil and etc. in based of Georgian technology. So there was also one of the technology, another startup that we financed with 100,000 Georgian lari, who created this different method of the producing rare materials. We also financed some in the technologies on building materials and etc. So we financed in different kind of areas, green technologies, but as I mentioned, we are not only focused on green technologies or green innovation. We are focused on innovation overall and also including them. So if people have some ideas, and it must be globally scalable ideas, so because we only support the startup ideas who has the potential of global scalability, then we would be happy to evaluate them and make decision to finance them.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Avtandil. And I think, Elena, you wanted to add something to that, right?
Да, спасибо большое. На самом деле, когда я слышала дискуссию про ковид, мне очень хотелось тоже добавить, как мы, как банк, боремся с ковидом именно в части наших инноваций. То есть настоящим антиковидным сервисом, с нашей точки зрения, было внедрение нового сервиса Belinvestbank, это сервис «Оплати». «Оплати» – это система расчета с помощью электронных денег, которая находится в электронном кошельке. Доступ к электронному кошельку можно получить очень просто, скачивая приложение на свой смартфон. И расчеты производятся именно по QR-коду, бесконтактно. То есть именно это тот сервис, который был очень нужен в переломные времена 2020 года, когда мы, 2019 года, когда все, в общем-то, страдали от распространения ковид-инфекции. С помощью нашего сервиса можно рассчитываться не только в точках сервиса, в торговле, ресторанах и так далее. То есть деньги можно переводить с одного электронного кошелька на другой электронный кошелек. Этот сервис работает так же, как менеджер, как мессенджер. В данном случае можно попросить денег, например, у своих близких или родных, а также сделать совместный кошелек, если вы идете на какую-то вечеринку. Помимо вот таких вот платежей, также этим сервисом «Оплати» можно рассчитываться в транспорте, что также немаловажно во времена ковида, поскольку платеж совершается по QR-коду, бесконтактно. То есть этим сервисом уже пользуются люди более 50 населенных пунктов нашей страны, и ежедневно такими билетами пользуются 35 тысяч человек в день. То есть, в общем-то, это очень удобно, можно использовать в общественном транспорте, в маршруте и даже в такси. Но и хочется сказать, что наш сервис получил второе место в звании «Инновационный банк» 2019 года.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Elena. And we are slowly coming to the end of our session. Time flies. But before we close, I wanted to ask each of you if you could, in one word or at the most one sentence, so very shortly, say what you think is the most important to scale up green innovations and really transform the industry and the economy. We know this is something we could discuss for hours, but if you could name one thing you think is very important, of course, there's also others, that would be great. So I'll just go around as I see you. So Ekaterina, can you go first?
Yes, thank you, Bettina. I would say capital markets is the answer. You know, green, sustainable, and sustainability-linked bonds will help. Many institutional investors are interested in sustainable infrastructure assets. And of course, we as EBRD, you know, stand ready to support both private and state-owned companies if they decide to tap capital markets.
Thanks so much. Radosław?
Yeah, I think this kind of meetings, collaboration between the stakeholders, government, NGOs, corporations, small, medium-sized companies, that's the success.
Thank you so much. Avtandil?
Yes, thank you very much, first of all, and I think that it's very great to see that private organizations, international finance institutions, together with the government, is doing so many things in order to work in this area. So I think altogether we can achieve the results that we want to do.
Thank you. Elena?
Да, спасибо большое. Очень рада была всех услышать, и я думаю, такие панели, они очень важны и необходимы. Как с финансовой точки зрения и со стороны финансового бизнеса хочу сказать, что мы как банки будем продолжать работать, чтобы работа экологичного бизнеса не останавливалась. Да, спасибо.
And Kamuran, please.
I think putting the topic in the center of your business model and working within the ecosystem is probably will bring the biggest impact. So thank you very much. Spasiba.
Thank you so much, everybody. This was really interesting. And for the closing, I wanted to mention, and that builds up on actually, Kamuran, what you were saying in terms of putting sustainability at the heart of the business, that we are having a project jointly with the colleagues at CEDA on eco-innovation, and CEDA will support SMEs in Georgia to implement eco-innovation and to really integrate sustainability at the heart of their business, in the DNA of their business, and work with value chain partners. So anybody who's interested to learn more about this, please do reach out to the colleagues at CEDA. And in the meantime, thank you so much. Apologies that we didn't get to all the questions, but I think you can also contact all the panelists still after the session. And thank you so much for sharing your insights and your ideas. This was very enriching. And yeah, now let's move on to the next session. Thanks so much.